and everyone was really nice, and I just had a great time. And the conference as well was fantastic. So can't wait for those in-person conferences to happen and to visit Finland again one day.
Great. Iida, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. It's very good to be here. So I'm working for the KPMG at the moment as a global mobility and immigration manager. And yeah, I'm living in Finland, in Helsinki. And yeah, something good about this. Yeah. It is pretty much a cliche, but it's good to have the fresh air and great tap water. I mean, I was living a long time abroad in Bangkok, and over there, these things were not really part of your everyday life. So yeah,
it's good to appreciate the basic necessities sometimes. Paula, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure. So I'm Paula. I'm with KPMG, as was mentioned. Been with KPMG for 21 years. Lived in the Helsinki surroundings for, well, more or less my whole life. Won't tell you how many years, because otherwise you might think I'm older than 25. I have spent a few months in Dallas as well, and I think I'm going to do the same as Iida. I think what's nice with living around Helsinki is that you can really walk and bike everywhere. In Dallas, people looked strangely at me, and no offense to people living in Dallas, but they looked strangely at me when I walked to the office, which was 500 meters away. So I think that's what I like about it. And Ilya, it's Löyly. It's still there, and it's a nice restaurant and a nice sauna.
Lol, yes. I remember jumping in the water. I've never been to a restaurant that I can go and jump in the ocean. That just was fantastic.
You should do it in the winter time though, because then there's ice as well there. It's more fun.
Yeah, it was in November.
Yeah, cool.
Nice. So hey, Andrew, who are you and what is the best thing about where you live, or best memory?
Thank you, Tia. I'm Andrew from Codit.io. I'm head of talent. This is my third scale-up company. Previously worked at Mars Global and Musician. You might have heard about those companies. I have relocated and hired a lot of people from abroad. And I can tell you they definitely don't choose Finland because of the weather. But there are many other things that we are very proud about here. For example, happy memory, last summer, me and my friend, we bought a sailboat, and we had to figure out a lot of things about sailing. And I think Finland is amazing for all sorts of sports, outdoors activities in the summer, in spring, November, maybe you want to jump into water and then go back to sauna. But yeah, it's a very kind of beautiful place, I would say.
I agree, but maybe there we are, the majority of the people or speakers present now are maybe a bit biased there, but yes, let's wait for the summer to kick off. But without further ado, and let's skip the weather talk, let's jump into the topic in hand this afternoon, or whatever time zone you are present. And I'd like to ask Ilya first, like, what made you start VanHack? Why should companies hire internationally?
Yeah, awesome. So thanks again for having me. It's okay if I share my screen and go into the slides? Is that
go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, so why we started VanHack? Very briefly, I had lived abroad in South America, in Brazil for 4 years, and came back to Canada, where a lot of the developers I met in South America asked me for tips on how to relocate, and created an online school to teach developers English, specifically the English for developers, and started getting requests from companies asking to hire those developers. And so now we've become the largest tech recruiting company here in Canada, and working on becoming the largest tech recruiting company in the world, international tech recruiting company, to help as many developers relocate as possible, to bring as much tech talent to places like Helsinki and others. So just a little bit about us: we have over 200,000 people in our talent pool, and we add about 1,000 people every week, and trying to help companies hire. See, some companies we work with, Anyfin from Sweden just hired a developer from us today. So working on Finland next. So why hire internationally? Well, I'm guessing a lot of people here are startups or kind of early stage companies, right? And talent is really, really important, and how to keep and retain talent, especially on the tech side, it's a very big problem. So what does hire internationally allow you to do? Well, it allows you to hire those senior roles, and especially the hardest to fill roles faster, maybe not quickly, but faster. Allows you to retain the talent, which is a really big point. It costs a lot of money to make a hire, and to lose someone, train them up again, can mean weeks or months off your development roadmap, which means your competitors are getting ahead of you, and you're going to not be as competitive in the marketplace. Another thing is it's less risky. I think a lot of people think that hiring locally hiring internationally is more risky. There's ways to make it less risky. One of those ways is doing a remote start or a remote trial for a few weeks or months. And everyone's remote anyways these days. I'm not sure how it is in Helsinki with the offices open or not, but I'm guessing everyone's used to working remotely or more open to that. So there's really not that big of a difference with everyone being on Zoom, Slack, and all those things. People can contribute code to Jira and get things into production. Use Jira to contribute code. Another thing that's really important is diversity. So if you're early stage company, really important for you to, from the beginning, to start planting those diversity seeds, if you will, or having a diverse team. If it's three dudes in a garage, well, maybe you want to hire a lady, or maybe you want to hire someone from another country. It's like eating food, right? Like you're gonna go to a restaurant. You don't want to go to the same restaurant every single day and get sick of that same food. You want to have variety, and that'll really help you build better products for all the different types of users that are out there. But I know one of the great things about Finnish companies is that you guys build for the world, right? It's not just you're building for one market. You're always kind of thinking globally, and so you want to have that diversity of talent in your team from the beginning. And then as you scale, it really helps you hire a lot of people, right? So if you are only looking at a specific small amount of countries, or even in your local city, there's just not that many developers. I always say this, and I really believe it's true, that there's more developers that want to move to Helsinki than there are in Helsinki right now. So if you can tap into that large amount of people, you can hire a lot of people as you scale. And lastly, all the big guys are doing it, right? Like I'm sure a lot of the companies that the kind of top companies in Finland, in the Nordics, they're hiring globally. So why aren't you using that same competitive tool that they are? So how to quick start? First on is just be open-minded. I meet a lot of people that just have the kind of a mindset of, only the best developers are here, or they're from specific countries, and you have to be open-minded. The great talent is everywhere. And just being open to that. And I guess with this, also get educated, which by attending this webinar you are doing, and we have some really good panelists coming up, and I'll finish soon, so make sure that everyone, we can go to the next people. But post your positions on many different sites, so AngelList, LinkedIn, us as well. One of the things as well is people do a lot, especially early stage companies, is they're really slow to get to candidates. Candidates apply, they don't give them feedback, they don't reach out to them, they just ignore them, thinking that they'll be able to wait. That's a really big mistake. So make sure you move fast on candidates, give them good feedback. Have maybe a 2-offer system where you give them a remote contract offer and a local contract. And then maybe have a remote trial, and then the relocation. There's a lot of details in this, but this is kind of a high-level overview of how to start and how to make it happen. A quick success case with us, we helped Shape, which is a company not from Finland. We haven't had a Finnish success case yet, but it's a company in Denmark that hired 4 VanHackers, and this is one of them. Carlos, he's a Colombian mobile iOS engineer who moved to Copenhagen recently, and so yeah, we have a lot of great talent that we help people hire. And last kind of thing I'll say is we've just launched a new product, and I'm going to give a quick plug to it, which is a free applicant tracking system for startups. So if you're a startup and you're looking to stop hiring through spreadsheets and actually use an ATS, this is a 100% free product that you can use. So vanhack.com/ATS. Just launched today, so I just want to include that there. Okay, I'll stop sharing, and hopefully that was helpful.
Amazing, super quick intro. And did we already answer the key question in this first couple of minutes? That was a really nice summary. Thank you, Ilya. One of the audience members also tapped into the topic of diversity. So at least like from a Finnish perspective, Finland as a country might be seen as a quite homogenic nation and such, but you mentioned, Ilya, that the international talent can be the kind of diversity seeds or such in the companies. So have you seen that the companies that use, for example, VanHack or collaborate with you, have they really benefited of the kind of diversity building up in the company once they have hired international talents?
Yeah, we hear it all the time. You know, there's diversity is a whole topic, and there's so many different, you know, I guess threads you can pull there, whether it's hiring people with disabilities or different gender or ethnicity. There's just so much there. I think the most important thing, especially for startups, is to start sooner rather than later, because once you have, let's say, 10 males from the same country on the team, it's really hard to hire other types of people because they'll feel a little bit intimidated. So I think, yeah, it's important to start early. But yeah, we just had a women in tech hiring fair. Actually, the company Anyfin from Sweden was hired a lady from Nigeria, front-end developer with 3 years experience. So that's just one example from today. Actually, we helped 20 women get hired in the last 2 months through that event, and many more doing interviews. But it's not just genders. There's so many different kinds of people you can hire. And yeah, we have many examples, but I think it's especially in software development, one of our values is code has no accent. So if you have a great developer from Japan or I don't know, any other country, they can speak JavaScript, and they can speak JavaScript with someone from Finland. So yeah, it's I think important, but not just because it's like feel good and we're all friends. Like, no, we're capitalists here. We're trying to make money, and it's actually very important for your business and bottom line, which I think a lot of people miss.
That's true. You always have to, after all, think about the business sides too, and especially I think thinking of developers and people with developer background and profile, there's a huge asset for them to use their talent regardless of language in a way, because they already have the language of coding. I'd like to next hear from Andrew, like, what kind of experiences have you seen with, for example, international talent growing the diversity in the companies? For example, you've worked before, you mentioned that you have background in Musician and Mass Global, and now with Kodit. It would be great to hear an example, like, so what's up with the practicalities in a way?
Absolutely. I think it was a good summary from Ilya overall of things we need to look at when hiring international and why we should do that. In general, if you are a company that is looking to grow, I think the reality for you is that the whole world is your playground. You have to basically interact with the clients globally, and you have to also interact with the talent globally. Also, I believe that diversity is about representing society in your company, and it can be also the global society, not necessarily your local society. And I think, as Ilya mentioned, it is like just a necessity that you have to be diverse to be competitive in what you do. And I haven't done too many relocation cases at Kodit, to be fair. I only joined the company about 4 months ago. We are relatively international. We have operations in Poland and one other country coming up, announcement pending. Cannot talk much about that. But essentially, when we talk about international hiring, I think it's important to distinguish two different paths. One is bringing talent to your headquarters, to your location, wherever you are. Another one is, for example, opening an office in a different country. Hiring your first employee there, a country manager. And maybe we'll not focus on that one, although it is also very important that you find the right person there, and then you enable that person to hire the rest. And then there is a ton of different admin practicalities. I'm sure Paula or Iida can comment on that further, when you have to be compliant with local HR practices and labor law and so on and so forth. But when it comes to hiring people to, let's say, to Finland, the reality is that we have to scrape the world for the talent that matches our positions oftentimes, because scale-ups, they want to grow really fast. Very concrete example, at Mars Global, we were expanding to Japan. We needed a designer who understands the Japanese users. They are like a very interesting bunch, culturally very different from, let's say, people living in Europe. And then we needed a designer to basically work with our design team in Helsinki. So we found this person, we relocated this person, and then we used an agency to help us to take care of some of the relocation practices. I think from the kind of organizational standpoint, that was a pretty easy and straightforward process, because when it comes to, let's say, running recruitment process, you do it the same way. You define the profile of the candidate who you want to hire, and you just don't limit yourself with the candidates available right here. You just find the best match candidate anywhere you can find that candidate. And then the kind of difficulty is that the timelines are a little bit more extended, because you have to take care of different visa-related paperwork, arranging the flights, accommodation, and then last but not least, sometimes person relocating to the country might not be prepared for the country. In a way, it can be a culture shock. Sometimes they might have a spouse or some family members to relocate with. They have to discuss it beforehand, so it's not a surprise for anybody in this process. I actually sometimes during my time at Musician, I had calls when I was closing my candidates where I had my candidate and my candidate's family there in the call, where I was explaining things, how things work in Finland. Because if we just walk away from this Japanese case, at Musician, we hired probably every second developer from abroad. And essentially, sometimes you relocate a person and then that person leaves basically at work. Well, not literally, but like they are very passionate about what they do. A lot of like, speaking of retention, when people relocate and they don't know anybody in the new country, the new company becomes their kind of second family. They spend a lot of time interacting with their colleagues. It's important to have a good onboarding process and kind of opportunities for people to get to know each other. So from the retention perspective, that is actually really great. It builds the community spirit. But then when there is a spouse or family member who has a limited access to this community, that can become challenging. So it is important that you involve the spouse or family members in this process. And because we also had cases when we had a successful relocation case with an employee, but then some years after, they would move back to their home country because the spouse couldn't find a job in Finland, for example. And that was a frustrating experience for both of the people. So speaking of like concrete examples, I will not give you like one concrete example because I have done so many different cases, like from Argentina, Turkey, US, different European countries. It is all very different every time, because essentially if you relocate out from outside the EU, there is a certain kind of visa specific process. Sometimes you have to obtain this visa in their home country before they can travel to the country. Sometimes if they relocate from Europe, they just can come here and already start working here. Sometimes they can come on certain type of visa and start working and apply for residence permit from here. Million of different opportunities and possibilities. I'm sure Paula and Iida will tell you in detail how this works. But you have to realize that you basically benefit from matching talent from anywhere in the world to your position. You benefit from retaining this amazing talent in your company, but you have to be also conscious that it's personal life of somebody. You cannot just toy with it. You have to be very consistent. You want this person to be part of your company. You relocate them. You are sort of in charge. I remember one Juhannus, maybe Ilya, you don't know Finnish, midsummer. A couple of years ago, I spent my midsummer in the city, not in the cottage, how many people in Finland spend it, because I had to meet a developer from Argentina who was flying in on that day. And then I needed to give the key to that developer. Then that developer had a ton of bags and he was hungry and he didn't know anything. So I took that guy to Koti Pizza, like a very famous pizza restaurant here in Finland. And then we had a bonding experience. And then I'm still friends with this person, even though we don't work together. Some month ago, he was like, Andrew, that was like the first the best experience of Finland I've gotten, like because you were the first person who met me in the country. I still remember that, and I didn't remember this, to be fair, but I feel like this is the most meaningful part of my job as a recruiter, to help these people to create these moments that they are remembering throughout their life, and then they fulfill their career ambition through that. But I will probably stop here because I can speak a lot. So I hope you got the gist of kind of my message. I think we can elaborate on this further down the discussion, but I want to give Paula and Iida a chance to maybe elaborate more on the practicalities of all these processes.
Yes, indeed. And what a heartwarming experience for you to share with this person and make an impact, honestly. And I think it's really valuable for anybody working in the recruitment or company growth side of things, that it all comes down to the people, to the individuals. And I think it was well addressed what you said, Andrew, that you can't toss around people's lives, because then they will turn your back at you and won't work for your company. So very, very valuable points. But what I at least got from your way that you said, it's all about tapping the opportunity, and also kind of addressing what Ilya said earlier, that, hey, there's people around the globe and lots of opportunities, but then it comes down to the maybe legal practicalities, how to organize the actual employment contract and so on. So that's why we have Iida and Paula here from the global sourcing and global talent team and taxation departments at KPMG to tell, like, okay, looking from the Finnish side, how does international hiring and relocation look like?
Thanks. Let me just start by sharing a screen, because we figured in 7 minutes there's no way to cover Finnish legislation without being able to share something. So let me just. Well, Iida and myself, we work with KPMG's tax department with global mobility issues. So basically for the past 20+ years, been helping various companies move people into Finland, but then of course with my colleagues around the world also moving people between countries. And I've maybe wanted to start by sharing kind of how can you make it really easy, and how are you going to give everyone a headache, including the family, the company, the employee, and so on. While making it easy, basically person relocates to Finland from day one, starts work here, Finnish tax, Finnish social security, and as long as you've got the work permit side sorted, it's basically he or she is treated just as any Finnish person you'd hire. Naturally, this isn't always realistic, so it's maybe not possible from day one, just as Ilya commented from start. But then again, if you want to make it really complicated, let's say you hire someone, you find the best talent. This is actually a live case I had just a few months back. Perfect match talent-wise, but person lives and sits in France and is saying that, yeah, no way he's relocating to Finland. He's going to take the job. He's the best match. But then looking at that again then ends up, internationally speaking, in the Finnish company needing to set up social security, employers' obligations, and the works in France. And I mean, all the best. I love French people, I love French food, but their administration and that part is really complicated. So that again, it's doable, but again, it's a lot of work. So you need to understand the additional work involved there. Of course, doing this for a short while is probably doable, but for good, maybe you really need to know what you're getting into. And then again, of course, the middle road, maybe someone wanting to work remotely just like one day or something, family wouldn't relocate, say Finland, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, something like that. Again, doable, but there's certain things you need to bear in mind, because you might end up with reporting obligations in the other country as well. So that's kind of, the things you need to consider. So just moving the person and the goods and everything, day one to Finland, easy peasy. Letting them stay wherever, not so easy, but doable. But then, Iida, do you want to share a little bit on I mean, Finland tax is a lot. I can comment some stuff on that later on, but what do we need to bear in mind work permit size or registration wise when bringing someone into Finland?
Yeah, I can share some insights regarding that. And in general, I would say that work permit is always required when someone wants to come to work in Finland. That is a good rule to keep in mind when we are talking about third country nationals. I mean, EU nationals obviously are a different story and they don't need to obtain the work permit beforehand. And in general, also the work permit should be obtained from the country of residence of the employee or the home country. And yeah, it should be in hand and only then you can travel to Finland. But there is one exception in Finland regarding this rule. And I think as we are talking here mostly about this, companies are needing specialists, people who have some special skills that maybe are not, they are not maybe able to find them in Finland. So that's when they start thinking of hiring from abroad. And there's a special permit for these people and it's called the specialist permit. And with this permit, you are actually allowed to travel to Finland, apply for the permit in Finland, and you are even able to start working even before the permit has been granted. And with this permit, obviously, there's also a little trick that you need to consider before traveling to Finland. So this person who is traveling to Finland need to obviously be able to stay legally in Finland. And this means that he or she needs to have a Schengen visa, valid one, or Schengen residence permit, or needs to even, I mean, for example, US citizens, they don't need to have a visa or any residence permit. They can just travel to Finland as it is so-called visa-free country. But anyway, it's important to check that this person is coming to Finland and is able to stay in Finland legally also in this case. And a little bit, I will try to show you how easy it is. It is actually to obtain this specialist permit to Finland. It's basically, there are a few criteria that the employee needs to meet. The salary should be at least 3,000 euros monthly. Normally, the person needs to have a higher educational degree from the university. Bachelor degree is sufficient. And then these tasks that this person comes to perform in Finland are specialist tasks. So basically, these are the basic criteria that needs to be met. And I think it's pretty easy to meet this criteria with these experts that you are, for example, dealing with. And once you start the process for obtaining this permit, it's very actually important to, obviously, already when you are really deciding to make this hire, to start thinking about this immigration process as well and start gathering the documentation. It's good to start it early on the process. And because it might sometimes be quite time consuming as well if you need to and we were already mentioning this family members. And with this, always you need to have like birth certificates, marriage certificates, and sometimes they need to be translated and legalized, and it may take some time. And I mean, we have also had some cases that it has been a little bit problematic to obtain this, even these university degree certificates, as they may sometimes be hanging, I mean, be framed on the people's walls, and they can't believe that they actually need to take them down there and show the original one to the authorities. So yeah, it's good to take your time for this part of the process as well. And once all these documents, what basically for the specialist permit is what you need is this higher educational degree certificate. You need to have the signed employment contract, which shows also that the salary meets the criteria. And then you need to have a job description and a valid passport. That's basically all the documents that you need in order to obtain the specialist permit. So it's pretty straightforward and easy, I would say. And once you have all the documents gathered, then you can obviously leave the application, submit the online application. And once that part has been done, you can normally get officially in the Finnish Immigration Services website, the processing time is 1 to 2 months. But in real life, when the application is really like prepared well, everything is thought through, and you have filled the application carefully, you normally can get the decision in 2 weeks. So it's really not a long time, actually. And yeah, which takes a little while actually is to this residence permit card to be delivered in the home country. This is normally in a few weeks. And after that, the person is able to travel to Finland. So it's actually a pretty simple process, even though it's often considered that it's very like time consuming and it takes a long time. But when you have certain things like planned and prepared in advance, it's pretty straightforward process. And once the employee is in Finland, normally you need to have, when you really move to Finland, this personal identity code, which normally is also granted in connection with this residence permit. But in case you for some reason were not granted that, then you need to go and do the local registrations separately. And in this office called the Digital Population and Data Center, and that is something that you will need to do in person. But and also, if you are staying for more than 1 year in Finland, it's very beneficial to register the municipality here in Finland. And in that case, then you are able to use, for example, the health services and all this kind of stuff in Finland. So this is basically, in a nutshell, the immigration process in Finland, what you need to do in order to be able to settle down and start living in Finland.
And then again,
Paula probably can tell a little bit more of the social security and tax side.
Sure. Then again, the tax side, I think the most important thing there is probably prior to the hire communication on what the person can expect the net take-home salary to be. Finland's known for having pretty high tax rates, and that's, one of the hardest discussions I've ever had is with a company who relocated a lot of people from Dubai, and these guys didn't understand at all why in the world would they have to pay taxes. They didn't make any sense to them. So kind of giving the people some kind of an understanding of what the tax rate is. You can quite easily calculate what the estimated rate would be on the website of the Finnish tax office. And you need to remember that we also have a special expert tax, a low tax of a whopping 32%, which of course 32 is pretty high in many countries, but here that's seen as a tax break. So that's I think that's one part, helping them understand what the tax rate is going to be. And when doing so, if you hire someone locally here, they will be within Finnish pension and social security. And that does mean an additional 10% that's taken out of the pay. And that's many times something that maybe is forgotten to communicate to them. And of course, 10 additional % from the salary, that's a big deal for many people. So kind of helping them understand that so they know what they've got to live with. Again, here, if you would have someone starting, say that they can't come to Finland straight away, and like I think, well, Ilya, your example on doing a trial remotely for say 2 or 3 months before, then for that period of time, they wouldn't be paying tax in Finland. Technically speaking, you probably should check in that country where they're starting the work, whether you'd have to arrange some employer's obligations or do something there. But if you keep the period very short, I think the risks are still fairly low. If you let them work there for say 1 month or 2 months or something like that, that wouldn't be taxed. But then again, so then after relocating to Finland, the lots, it doesn't matter if it's salary or benefits, shipment of goods into Finland, relocation allowances, removal can be exempt to 50%, but the majority would be taxable. So again, there, if you promise to help them with the relocation, to give a package, discuss with them that would also be taxable. There's again not a whole lot of benefits on the Finnish side that you can give exempt of tax. So that's one part. For instance, schooling, if you pay for schooling, that's going to be taxable. So again, it's a good thing if you offer that, because then they don't have to pay themselves, but they need to understand that it's going to affect the net pay. And maybe then a last comment actually that we happened to discuss a little bit before this online, before we went online with Ilya is, you know, can you make a contract with a company? Because that's something that I get asked a lot as well. And I mean, yes, you can definitely do a contract with a company, but you just need to make sure that it's, you know, it's an actual business. So it's not just a company set up for your specific employment, because that's not going to work. It's going to be seen as employment. But if it's someone who has, you know, a bunch of different clients working with different companies and your company is just one of them, then I don't see why that shouldn't work. But if it's just for this particular employment, then in most cases it's not a very safe idea. But I think these would be the points. I think that immigration procedure is the time consuming prior to coming to Finland. And again, as Iida said, collecting the documents, that's kind of getting that right. With tax, it's easy as of they come here, local contract, Finnish tax, Finnish social security. Of course, they get the benefits and the pension as well, but helping them understand the rate, I think that's pretty crucial, especially if they come from, well, Denmark's got higher rates than we, but if they come from anywhere else, helping them understand that. And understanding that there is a very limited possibility of giving any benefits exempt of tax together with the relocation, so taking that into account. But I think we maybe made it in almost 7 minutes, went a few seconds over. But I think I'm going to stop sharing the slide now, because then it'll be easier for me to see if there's any comments or questions coming through.
Yes, of course. Thanks for a great summary, and you make it sound so easy, honestly, just following through some basic checklist, and there you go, you have an amazing talent working for your company. But again, you also addressed the important point of taking into account the whole picture, with, like Andrew first speaking of the family side of things, but then of course family side of things can mean kindergarten and schooling and whatnot. So those then affect the initial hiring and the tax in that regard.
And I honestly, I think the family part also is the one that affects, because the main reason people are wanting to keep working remotely from, you know, a previous location for some point on time is many times that they have a family there that doesn't want to relocate, or the family stays there. And that's always very complicated, as you know, put it very crucially. If you just move the whole person and the whole package and everything to Finland from day one, it's going to be pretty easy. But if you allow them to work remotely, say 1 or 2 days a week, that's always when you complicate stuff.
That's true. So one question that, like, do you think that we have a lack of talent in Finland, that then like international hiring should be addressed more, or because there is a lot of unemployment of talent? And what about the unemployed ones? What is the kind of competitive advantage there when taking in the international talents to a certain country, not per se Finland, but in a country?
I feel like I should take that one, because people ask me a lot about that. And I feel like there is probably often a mismatch between what companies expect, what companies need. They want somebody who can be just an amazing expert, who can just start and from day one hit the ground running, and they don't have time or money to train somebody. And then there is definitely the fact that we have a lot of good talent in the country already. And I think we need to work with these people. And I have participated in some activities with City of Espoo and City of Helsinki, where basically the city is trying to provide some coaching support to the talent to bridge the gap between the talent needs and talent qualifications. So I definitely think that one does not exclude the other in a way. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
That's great, thank you. And also getting back to the Finnish law and regulations, like Paula and Iida, where do you see that the companies that hire international people, where do they fall short in terms of like relocating an employee? What is it, a specific document that you see is always missing, or a certain topic that is not addressed or is forgotten in the process?
Well, I can. Okay. Paula, just go on.
Sorry, Iida. I was just going to say that I think, well, of course, the cases that come on our desks are generally the big messes. So many times, though, they would be around that someone's been allowed to work from abroad from a long period of time, or you relocated them kind of partially into Finland and just working here, and just that type of things. I think the remote work is what I've seen where you have the biggest kind of challenges, or that you then forget to apply for the special expert tax where you could have gotten the 32% instead of 50 something. But I think those would be probably in hiring in the kind of main pain points that I've seen.
Do you, Iida, have something to add there?
Yeah, I'm just from the immigration point of view, it's always the time, lack of time. That's basically that everything happens in the last minute. So it would be good if the companies could address, to have the basic, like a certain processes cleared, so it would go more smoothly, because that's what I see mostly, that there is lack of time.
Always the challenge of like how to push certain like governmental processes forward faster, or how to really enable the talent in this like case to actually start working and enjoy the life and not worry about the practicalities of how to work or how to start work. Nice.
I just saw something. Oh, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw someone asking if there's different rules if you hire part-time workers for tax and social security. No, it's the same rules that would apply. Labor law-wise, probably there are some differences, but the fact that you're taxed and under Finnish social security and need a work permit would be the same.
Nice. Andrew, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just a small comment about the specialist residence permit. That's a really good one. What is important is that when the specialist is applying, the family members, if they apply at the same time and the application is processed at the same time together, it is much easier. We had a case once when we relocated the specialist, but the family wasn't ready to relocate and we had to take care of it later. And then there were some serious delays and I had to write a lot of letters to the immigration service about that. Eventually we resolved that, but it can create an additional pain point.
That is a very, very good point, Andrew. It's really important actually that these applications are submitted simultaneously for the whole family, because otherwise the main applicant may get the permit like in 2 weeks, and the family members who apply a few weeks later, it may take several months for them to get the permits. Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, that can create a huge delay in the whole process and burden for the family, of course.
And that might also be the situations where you then, when you panic, let the main applicant still work from the home country waiting for the family to get the permits, and then you end up in waiting for a year or so and create a lot of new challenges in that other country. So yeah. Indeed,
that's not a situation to enable at all.
No, but I guess all of that can be handled by just, you know, looking already early in the recruitment process to make sure that they take down that, you know, heist of the university diploma from the golden frames and look for the marriage certificate and so on, because that's just going to speed up the process. So I don't know. I don't know if we have time, but I just have to share. We had this absolutely brilliant mess, probably, well, way more than 15 years ago, but it's still, we had a guy coming into Finland to work who was, I think, originally born in India, but then moved or had to move into Pakistan wife was Pakistani. They got married in Dubai. They had one kid in Pakistan, one in India, and I think there was another child still from an earlier marriage. And I mean, all of these documents had to be certified in various countries. It took, I think, 9 months to get all the documentation in place. So, I mean, obviously not all cases are going to be that complicated, but kind of asking people early on to start gathering whatever documents they need is a good idea.
Indeed, and keep in mind that, of course, different countries have different legislation, and like you listing already 4 countries there, so it's
or something like that. I can't remember. It's might have been other, but there was this whole 2 marriages, 1 marriage, and everyone from different countries. That was kind of the main complication.
And of course, it doesn't have to be complicated when you know what you're doing and know what kind of
exactly. Then it goes through just really smoothly, just like Iida mentioned. So yeah.
Ilya has been super active in the chat and responding there. That's important task here, and there's been good discussion about the kind of companies offering spouse programs, and for example, Supercell has one in place apparently. Andrew, do you see this approach with other startups or scale-ups to have in place their own spouse program or international hiring programs, just to tap the international talents out there?
Definitely, Supercell is a benchmark in many ways. I think they're doing an amazing job in spouse support. I think also they lobbied a lot of good initiatives to the city, and I think City of Helsinki now has a really good attempt to at least address this problem. I think there is some spouse program up and running. I think they require more participation from more companies, and all they ask for is just to host maybe 1 event per year for spouses. And then that is your ticket to enter the program, essentially. So I think a lot of things are changing. Of course, COVID is not making it easier, but I definitely think that absolutely, certainly, job doesn't end here when you sign the contract and then you assume everything is going to happen magically. Even when the person has arrived already and started working, there is a lot of paperwork to do. Even like some people I know were struggling to obtain Finnish banking identifiers because of some bureaucratic issues. And then basically some banks are easier to open an account in than others, and so on and so forth. So people need some support. Maybe some wiki from you, maybe somebody who can answer their questions. But I have answered a lot of those questions throughout my career. And we had like basically a living document. Every time we had a new person joining, they went through this process, they would update the process and say, well, now this works this way. This was something that worked for me, and that was very helpful. And then once this kind of essential phase is over, people, of course, want to make friends. Once I had a conversation with a developer who successfully started working, and after 3 months, we had a chat, like, how is it going? He said, you know, I don't know if I want to stay in the company because I like everything, but I don't have any Finnish friends. All my friends are from the company, also my Finnish friends. How do I get Finnish friends from outside the company? And then we have to also like help people to find ways to engage in different hobby activities, for example, encourage them to learn Finnish language, or I don't know. That is definitely a big process on its own. And then if you also have to support other aspects of a team member's life, then it is even a bigger job. So I think Supercell definitely is a benchmark. We definitely can do a lot to support our international hires. And there is no kind of silver bullet that just one size fits all in a way. But I think you should just show your human face and have a person in the team who is approachable and can address the questions as they come in. I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, one thing that we do is we have a WhatsApp group for every city where candidates relocate to. And that really helps them fit in or meet people who are going or have gone through similar experiences as they have, and build that relationship. I know it might be difficult to do if you just have your one company, but I really agree. It's a very important part of the relocation process is after the move.
totally agreeable on that fact to enable those interactions and connections to happen, and to value those small acts of adding people to a WhatsApp group, then that can eventually lead the person to stay in the country and be even more connected to the society and wanting to build their life in the country. Actually, one question came through from George, that is there any age limit to be hired internationally? How do you, Ilya, see this?
Sorry, did you say Ilya or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. I wasn't sure if it was hold up. From what we've seen, there's no limit. I'm not sure again about Finnish law, but I think it's actually one of the benefits for the candidate is a lot of times candidates trying to relocate to a country, but they're too old for the immigration programs that are point-based. But if a company hires you, you then get a visa sponsorship and can move. So there's a lot of people kind of, let's say between 35 and 50 that are not eligible for the points-based systems, but are really good senior engineers that have a lot of experience because they're a little bit, a little bit older is the wrong way to say it, but they're not 20 anymore.
Watch out there.
They're not 20, let's put it that way. That's actually something, and that's something that companies look for, right? The companies are missing that team leader, CTO, senior engineer, because there's just not that many people who learned how to code 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think legislation speaking on the Finnish side, immigration, Iida, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not really an age limit there. There are some labor law rules. You can't hire really, really young people, but I don't think, I can't actually remember those. I think probably if you hire people below 16 or something like this, then they can only work so many hours compared to an adult. So that's really, at least on the Finnish side, that's, what, if you'd be looking at hiring really, really young people.
I would say probably the most important thing that you can prove this person is a specialist.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there was a question there. I don't know if we have time for it, but I think there was a question on documents needed if it's not an expert. But Iida, I believe it's pretty much similar documents, but do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends obviously quite a lot about the permit type, if it's really something, but what is always required basically is a valid passport and the employment contract. These are guaranteed required when you are applying for the residence permit based on work to Finland. But the other documents may vary a bit depending on the permit type.
And it might take a lot more time if it's not a specialist also.
That's also true if you are applying for the just a regular permit for an employed person. This is a two-stage process. The first, the employment services are estimating if this person is really required in Finland, and only after that the Finnish immigration service is doing their decision. So this process can take basically from 4 to 10 months in the worst cases. So yeah. So the specialist permit is basically the fastest and the easiest way to get employees in Finland.
Wow. If a person has a degree from Finland, at least it was working with Ministry of Employment, they could basically, this person didn't have to be a specialist, and then they could directly go to the immigration authority for the processing.
There are separate rules also for these who have obtained a degree in Finland.
Nice, really good add-ons there. As a kind of, we have still a couple of minutes left, and I'd like to close the discussion with a round of answers to a question that what do you see are the first steps to solve in a company that wants to open up their recruiting pipeline for international candidates? Why don't we start with Ilya? What do you see is the like a first step for a company to fix, so to say, or organize?
question. I think it comes down to removing bias as a first step. I think that it's really easy to say that, hey, developers from a specific country are really not so good, or developers from another country are really good. I think that I've spoken to hundreds of employers in the last few years, and that comes up once in a while. And I just think that that's something that is a dangerous way to think, because you'll miss out on some really, really great people if you have this mindset. So before you go forward in this journey, I would kind of think internally about that and maybe also as a company.
Nice. So bias can definitely be in or can be present in hiring processes. So definitely going away, acknowledging that and trying to fix your mindset and think differently can address the challenge of why, for example, international talent can't locate your company or do not see it as approachable or so. What about Paula? What do you see are the first steps to take?
Well, I would take a little bit of a boring lawyer kind of tax law
Really?
point of view here, but I mean, I would suggest to get your processes straight. So make sure who is ever hiring and in which countries you're hiring. Make sure you know the steps for the work permit, whether it be Finland or somewhere else. Make sure you understand how they'd be taxed, what's needed from Social Security perspective, and perhaps do something which is similar to what we do for our clients. So make sure that you have kind of lists of where to open bank accounts, which order to do what, so you can advise them so they're not kind of left on their own, because that can easily become a mess. So kind of having a very clear checklist for your recruiter or HR to fix or buy the help from outside, but just make sure that someone knows what needs to be done.
Of course, super good and non-boring answer. A good summary, I'd say. What about Iida? What would you take, or what would you see as the first steps for companies to address in this case?
I would need to really agree with Paula that it's very important to have all the processes clear inside when you start hiring from abroad. Then that makes everything go smoothly, basically.
True. Then you remove the internal barriers already beforehand and not end up in a situation where you solve them once you go on the hiring process. So
exactly, yes.
And Andrew, what do you think based on your experience from 3 different scale-ups?
Yeah, I think first of all, every time I need to open a new role, I sit down with my hiring manager and we define a role. We define the must-haves, nice-to-haves, what is the profile we are looking for. We also define channels, and that is the information I use to find the best match candidate. And then we have to be realistic with the hiring manager. Can we find this person here, or what channel should we use? So we basically need to agree that we use the global channels. We are open to hire these candidates internationally, and hiring manager is on board with that. As Ilya said about bias, maybe discuss that, but also you have to be realistic about, can you fill in this position? Is it some sort of unicorn position that you have to like rake through the entire globe to find that person or a couple of candidates? It may be the case, and then you have to be realistic and admit that yes, I have to hire internationally. That's one. And second, you have to be realistic and admit that yes, it will take some time. The normal recruitment process runs maybe from 2 weeks to 1 month in the best case scenario. If we found our best match candidate in 1 month, we're quite lucky. Then let's add 2 weeks for the specialist permit, 2 weeks for the residence permit card to be delivered. So at least 1 month from the sign date. So from the date when we open the role, we have to put maybe about 2 months realistically in the best case scenario when we can have this person working at this position in this company. And that is probably the best case scenario. So that is essentially about being realistic. That is my piece of advice.
That's great, and often important to realize the boundaries that can occur when certain like topics can then switch the direction of the boat, so to say, and kind of acknowledge that different timelines of the recruitment can eventually happen. Nice. Super good points from everybody, and at this point I'd like to thank you all of the discussion on behalf of Maria01 and also the hub. This has been really insightful and great to have all the points addressed. And yes, thank you so much for the afternoon session, and looking forward to seeing some direction changes in international hiring, getting more popular, and people being more flexible of their location, where to work, and how potentially COVID will affect the whole topic and work in general. That will be super interesting to follow. But thank you.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you for attending.